is live. Right, we're live. And we have 0 viewers. Where's my chat? Here's my chat. 0 viewers. Yay! That's how these things go. Right. I have a viewer. That's so exciting. Okay. Hello, viewer. Yay, there's one of you. That's exciting. Hi. I'm just going to wait for people to tune in, really. Give it a moment. I'm Kate, by the way. Thank you for tuning in. I'll try to remember to look at the camera. Need some more viewers. More viewers. People coming in. Very exciting. Okay, so while people are arriving, which is slowly happening, and just so you know, you should be able to, this is all very experimental, you should be able to type something. If you have any questions, feel free to type them to me. I will be answering them as I go along while I'm hanging out with you. But to begin, I'd like to say, so I wrote Friends We Haven't Met, and I'm working on a crowdfunding campaign right now to raise all of the money that's needed in order to get it edited and then printed and then sent to everyone who's pre-ordered it. Thank you to everyone who's pre-ordered it. And this is sort of a midway push so that people can meet me and ask questions. And also I'm going to be entertaining people. I have my journals from when I was in grade 2 here. I've put lots of handy little Post-its, particularly amusing entries, although arguably they're all really amusing, if not entirely surreal. But to start, as my viewership is growing for this broadcast, I'm going to do some thank yous because this isn't possible. None of this book is possible without the support of people who have done pre-orders already. So all of my patrons are amazing and I have immense gratitude to them. If you're not yet a patron, I already published the link to this in the little chat thing. So you can see the link to where the campaign page is so you can become a patron. But right now I'm gonna thank my patrons because they're awesome. I've sent them emails and I've been thanking them online regularly and I just wanna thank them as many times as possible. So I'm just gonna do a big name list here in order of patronage. So thank you to Gretchen, Eva, Keiko, Julian, that's my dad, thank you Dad, Val, Anonymous, Jamie, Juanita, Guy, Tova, James, Annie, John, Claude, Natalie, Paul, Chris, Jeremy, Rachel, Patty, Ariella, Zabine, Peta, Celia, Sarah, Ross, Nick, Annette, Georgie, Chris, Tina, Lee, Arancha and Stefan, Kit, Julie, Christina, Caroline, Star, Emily, Sierra, Nicole, and Carrie, Susan, Michelle, and Rita, or people who've made their contribution via other people for various reasons. So thank you. And oh, we've got some more viewers. Hi, welcome viewers. I don't know if the chat works. If the chat works, if someone could just like, I don't know, write hello or something like, hello, I'm gonna try that out and see if that, that works. Welcome viewers. That list for people who are just sort of tuning in as I was reading it are people who have already backed the book, so the patrons that I've already got, and thank you so much to all of them because they've got us quite far. We're already at 50%, pretty much, practically. We're $2 shy of the 50% funded mark and halfway through the campaign, so that is fantastic. Right, so So I wrote Friends We Haven't Met, and I am a writer. I've been writing since before I could spell. This is my deal, and that's sort of the deal with this hangout, is that I'm going to be reading to you from my old journals. And I do remember as a kid having like notebooks and stuff and filling them out. And then when I got into school, we were given these. I don't know if anybody recognizes this kind of thing. Like, do you remember this? I just want to say I think it's really awesome that little girls like imagining herself as a doctor. That's pretty cool. We need more of that. Anyway, how 80s can you get, really? And 90s. Yeah, the whole really me thing. I remember this. I don't know if this is a Canadian thing. Maybe this is Canadian. As I travel around the world, I start to realize how many things from my childhood were really inherently Canadian. So yeah, got into school and was encouraged to keep a journal regularly. I do remember most people in my class probably did 3 journals in a year. So my grade 2 collection was 5 journals. I filled them up pretty quickly. That was kind of my thing. So yeah, they are my start, I guess you could say. A few things that I noticed that trend in these is the insistence of getting people to guess my name and tell them that it's Katie. Also, I like to do my Y's backwards. I'm not quite sure why I did that. I do remember doing that. I remember really struggling when it came to writing a Y, not quite being sure what to put in that. Yeah, quite a lot of making sure people know my name. This is a theme. It's almost like, oh, I haven't done Guess My Name for a while, so I remember my imagination thinking random people might be reading this, and as it is, I'm reading it to you randomly online. So I guess random people are reading it. I don't know. Right. I always had a food obsession. Apparently, I was very thankful for food. That's pretty common. I have some very creative spellings. Like, I watched The Rocketeer. That doesn't really sound like a good movie for kids to watch. I think I meant Rocketeer. I know I meant Rocketeer. Guessing my name. This was another fun thing that I used to do, was I had a tape recorder and I would record radio shows and music shows. Usually it involved actually recording music off the radio and then doing my own commentary in between the songs. So here I share a story. I've been recording a tape. I do CBC News. I can do some CBC News for you if you want. Do you? Okay, I will. I also have conversations, kind of with myself, but with someone else who is theoretically reading the journal, but also apparently writing in it, in their dialogue. This is CBC News, and now we will have a weather, W-E-T-H-E-R, Ray, R-E-Y, port. 2 different words there. In Calgary, with 2 L's, it's so-so. That's official right there, so-so. It was cold with an E on the end. Very old school of me this morning. And that's all. Very efficient news reading. I was also really obsessed with writing stories, like tiny little stories. Here's an early story. One's, W-U-N, apostrophe S. It's very creative. My spelling got very creative throughout all of this. Once upon a time, there lived a white cat whose name was Ghosty. One day, the Gardets found a black cat. The Gardets is a terrible misspelling of my 2 best friends growing up's last name. Anyway, they found a black cat. Jean, I have no idea who Jean is. I've just introduced this character randomly, walked over to the cat. The cat looked uck. That's spelled with a Q, U-Q. I got the Q's and U's were meant to go together, but not the right order, or that there's no Q in the word up. Then the sky turned black, and a witch came down and picked up, again with the Q, the cat. Also the C is backwards in cat. One night, the white cat found the black cat, and they made kittens. The end. Yeah, this is a reoccurring theme. Very random, surreal narratives. I promise with Friends We Haven't Met that things have improved greatly. I tend to follow a straight narrative and have a lot more characterization. But this is early experimentation in my writing, so you know, we all have to start somewhere. Oh, right, this is great. So I hated onions when I was a kid, but I also hated spelling properly. So actually, I hated unions. And there's a lot of vitriol against unions in my grade 2 journal, how gross unions are, how pi is superior to unions. I really don't like unions. I'm against them. Again, another thing that's completely changed, naivety of youth. Apparently, I was far more conservative in my youth, but as I've gotten older, I've come to see that maybe I could be a little bit more enlightened about things. Dragons. I was obsessed with dragons. I like to draw them quite often. These are actually unusual drawings. Most of my dragon drawings involve hordes of stickmen tying the dragons up and generally attacking them, and yet a lot of the time my dragons are smiling. I do have that over here actually in a later one. I think even though it's being tied up and generally attacked, it seems pretty happy. Maybe it knows it's going to become a pet and be well fed and cared for, or maybe it's just really into being tied up. You never know. Yeah. So yeah, this is another good story. Early dabblings into fantasy writing, which is something that I did like when I was younger. I was quite into, but now as an adult, I'm more about contemporary work. Friends We Haven't Met, it's a very contemporary piece, more along the lines of things you might read by Kate Atkinson, although I am reticent to compare myself to the quality of Kate Atkinson. One day I will get there. Anyway, early fantasy. Yeah, really enjoyed fantasy. So here we have the dragon. Once, W-U-N-S, of course, there was a castle, C-A-S-L, that was on the tip top of a mountain. A prince and princess lived in the castle. There was a queen, Q-U-I-N, and king, whoa, W-O-H. I managed to misspell who. I was very creative about my misspellings. Who lived in the castle with 40 knights. One day, a dragon burned the castle. Stupid dragon. The king found the dragon's cave with the dragon in it. I'm not sure what word I just wrote there. Something. Finally. That makes sense. It's actually just F-I-L-Y, but apparently I meant finally. Finally, the dragon had burned everyone. The end. So I seem to have missed out in the narrative that the dragon burned the king when the king found the dragon. Kind of bleak, unless you're the dragon, I guess. Also, I used to dabble a little bit in poetry. Poetry's never been my strong suit. I have always been very diverse in my approach to writing. Genuinely, I have actually started a manuscript, a fantasy manuscript, many years ago, which never went anywhere and is about probably 50% done if I actually know some fantasy. But again, most of my work is contemporary fiction or young adult fiction specifically. But yeah, there's been a little bit of poetry. So we have dinosaurs, which is illustrated. For some reason, I decided, me? By the way, that's my brother. This is not in any way affiliated with Nike. Right, dinosaurs. I have no idea. Line is Detrepti dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are mean and ugly. Dinosaurs are wherever you go. Dinosaurs. Help. Quite good. So that's just one journal. Okay. I don't know if anyone is able to get the chat to work and write anything to me, but if you can, that would be cool. I'd like to take some questions if anyone has questions before I resume the surreal journey through Kaitlyn's childhood writings. I suppose I could talk a little bit about Friends We Haven't Met, since that's why we're here, or why you're here. That's just come up on my screen and it's blocking things. So Friends We Haven't Met, as I said, it's contemporary adult fiction. It's a piece that I wrote in 2012 during National Novel Writing Month. I had never heard of NaNoWriMo. I, at the time, was following quite a few different authors' blogs, and they all started talking about how they're getting ready for NaNoWriMo. So I did a little search. It was probably about 2 weeks or something before it started. And I decided, hey, that sounds like fun. I'm going to do that. So I did, which possibly was a little bit crazy on my part to decide to do that. Quite ambitious, we'll say. And for those who don't know, National Novel Writing Month is pretty much what it sounds like. It's actually more international than just national. It's probably not the best name. People do it all over the world. But in the month of November, you're encouraged to write 50,000 words minimum, on the basis that 50,000 words is about what makes up a novel. People who participate in it can pick whatever target they want over 50,000 in the official participation of NaNoWriMo. The goal is at least 50,000. I guess if you wrote a whole book and less than that. I did actually struggle when I was writing Friends We Haven't Met towards the end to get a full 50,000 words. I think I can be too efficient sometimes in my writing, as you heard from some of my stories that I've just shared from my journals. They're very short, you know, like half a page, 2 sentences, sometimes even. I promise this is much longer. Anyway, so yeah, I didn't know much about I didn't know not much about NaNoWriMo. Friends We Haven't Met actually was under the working title of, this might be a bit of a giveaway, empathy, because I work more in themes when I write. And there were a few things I wanted to do with the project when I took it on. So I, first of all, just wanted to write another novel, because it had been a long time since I'd finished writing anything. And it had been probably 2 years since I'd actually completed a whole manuscript. I've got several completed ones. I used to write a lot more when I was in high school and in my early 20s. And so I was pushing myself to actually finish something, start and finish something. And so I'm very stubborn, and it was a really good context in which to do it. So I signed up to NaNoWriMo, and then I was sort of hashing out what I wanted to do, and I really wanted to examine how interconnected people are, and how even a seemingly totally unrelated to us person who we might think we have nothing in common with may be able to relate to us or give us space or show us how, and like show us our humanness effectively. So I wanted to explore that interconnectedness that we have with people. And I also really wanted to work on tension. It's one of my, so I try to come up with something within my writing that I can improve every time I write something new, where I'm addressing a specific problem that I realize that I have. I should probably actually do an entire thing where I just work on tense, because I like to switch between past tense and present tense. That's a totally different issue. Anyway, so I want to work on my tension and keeping people intrigued in a story as well. So I embarked on NaNoWriMo 2012 with this in mind and started creating my characters. As I write, I generally just work on characterization, and then from the characterization I build out a plot, and it usually just sort of happens. This was also an interesting project because most of my writing has been for a young adult audience. When I was 19, I did a volunteer thing for the Calgary Public Library, and I was working with the head librarian in the young adult section, who would select what books the library was going to buy to have available. And she would get lots of publisher proofs, and then she had this roster of volunteer youth, of which I was one. And we would take the books, read the books, review the books, and feedback to her, because she read a lot of them, but she didn't have time to read every single one. And she wanted to make sure that she was actually getting some feedback from the audience who would be reading it. So I was a bit old for most of them by the time I was 19, but I still had very fresh in my mind about the frustrations I had in finding young adult novels that were relatable, if that makes sense. So yeah, all of my work has really been around speaking to young adult audiences, and Friends We Haven't Met was quite a deviation from that. I was then writing for an adult audience, which was a bit of a challenge for me, because I'm so used to writing a youth voice, And this was a variation between characters. I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of diversity represented in it so that it was, again, reflective of incredibly different experiences and yet the relatability of the human experience overall. I just got a few notifications here that I'm going to check just to make sure, because if this is actually working and I'm just talking to myself. I might be. In which case, hi, me. Let's see. Oh, no, all seems to be good. Excellent. Thanks to my viewers here who are tuning in. Can anyone do like a little type test? People who are watching? Yes, please. That would be great. If someone just typed like hi. I don't know if there's a another area that I should be looking at where I can find stuff. Or if I can see. Oh, look, there we go. Another area that I should be looking at. Ah, sweet. Hi. Okay, so I can't actually see this chat as it is in the window that I was looking at. Yay! Okay, so viewers, it's working. That's good. Brilliant. Yes, mini capitalist. That's a reference to my hatred of unions, stupid unions. This is so challenging. I have to have like 3 windows open at the same time to do this. You know, learning curve. Doing a crowdfunding thing is like a learning curve through the whole deal. Have I lost you? No, I haven't. Okay. What I have to do is figure out a way just to get the chat over here so that I can see what people are saying when I type in. Good. Yay! Okay, I figured it out. Sorry. This is, you know, technology. Haha, technology. This is going to be so weird for people to watch later. When I post it later, I may edit it. Right. So let's go back to some journals. Yay! I've started doing some cover illustrations on this one. Did I have a cover illustration last time? I can't remember. No, I didn't. I didn't think so. Yeah. I really like my stickmen. They're strange. They've got some interesting proportions going on. Yes, I am the manager, cameraman, and the news anchor. Thank you. It is really intense. Oh, hi, Ross. Welcome. Ha! And thank you. Oh, that's so exciting. I love Denver. Right, so moving on to my journal writing from when I was in grade 2, when I was 6. I have some very creative spellings, as I have said already. It's very interesting. I've got research, not too difficult to guess, I guess. I've been told to possibly read them as they're spelt and see if people can figure them out. But the thing is, the way they're spelt, while incredibly wrong sometimes, is actually phonetically, it works, like species. I don't know how else I pronounce that but species, but it is spelled S-P-E-A-S-H-Y''S. Species. Very creative spelling. I'm glad I moved on from that. Dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. Here's me as a dinosaur with a bow on my head. This one, fortunately, is not anatomically correct. I did have a habit as a child of drawing genitalia on every living creature I like to draw because I thought it was important that people understood. I don't know. I don't know why I did that. I was just being incredibly scientific in my approach to my drawings. Anyway, I love dinosaurs. I bro dinosaurs. That's an interesting one. So I can officially take credit for some sort of I can has cheeseburger way of writing things and the term bro. I know I meant draw, but you know, it's more deadlier than the male. Apparently, yeah, so I bro dinosaurs. I do. We're like this, me and dinosaurs. I like to de-dinosaurs. I don't know what I meant, probably draw. I wish I was a dinosaur. I have a collection. This is amazing. See, phonetically, that's correct. Collection. If you're trying to figure it out and you're 6, that makes sense, right? The end. I finished a lot of my journal entries with the end, regardless of whether or not they are in fact a journal entry or a story. Just seems to be an important thing. I like my charts as well. This is a very common thing, where I point out where everything is, all the important bits. Badge with a J. Classy. So this one is quite, I'm really fond of this entry. Here we have a beautiful example of early writer's block. This is something anybody who writes will be familiar with. Early writer's block. I am distressed, as you can see. Also, I seem to have a mermaid tail. I have one thing to tell you, people. I think that's supposed to be people being like, oh, really? I think I've written their dialogue in there. I have nothing to write. Wah, wah, boo-hoo. Don't worry, don't worry. So apparently I'm, again, this person who reads / exists within the journal is reassuring me. Wah, boo-hoo, the end. So collection stepped off the train on the platform in Zagreb. Yes. I could probably pull something from my journals for some inspiration. This is what's happening in the chat. Anyone who's watching the chat, you'll see contributions from my brother. Thank you. Okay, so here's something new then that begins later on. I suddenly become very violent in my journals. I seem to really like drawing violent attacks and fights of a cartoon quality that involve people being flung out of it or crawling away. And you can see I just write the dialogue. This is just the noises of what's going on here. It's almost like storyboarding for some crazy violent cartoon. Then there's the aftermath. Mick was one of my friends in my journals. He does not exist as a real human being, but I loved the name Mick, so I drew and write about Mick a lot. He wasn't an imaginary friend. He was just like a character. Yeah. So Mick got hurt. Obviously, he got hurt more than I got hurt. I wasn't very hurt. Here we have some more violence a little bit further on. This is like 2 entries later. Oh, also here's me writing. It looks quite awkward the way I'm writing. Anyway, yeah, very violent. And the aftermath once again. So Mick is just badly hurt. I like drawing bandages and I like drawing violence. I think I was working through something, probably. There's another one, right? Here we go. 2 pages of it. We have the fight, we have the aftermath. I don't know if my drawings are improving at all, but yeah, definite theme there for sure. I quite enjoy that one. It's very heavy with the violence in that particular genre. Friends We Haven't Met is not violent. I don't really write violence, not actually. Like I said, contemporary. Genres are so weird to define. So contemporary fiction is a bizarre one. And when people ask me what kind of stuff that I write, I kind of bulk, because I'm like, I read stuff about people. But doing this campaign was interesting because part of it was prepping what my pitch would look like and explaining how it was different. There's some alliteration there while I was talking. I needed to explain how Friends We Haven't Met is different than what's out there, and also like how it's the same of some things, and so therefore it has appeal, but then what it's doing that's different. And I read a lot. I try to read 52 books a year. That's a book a week. And sometimes I've shot over that. More often than not, I fall slightly under it, but I do my best. And reading quite a lot, I believe, does make you a better writer because it gives you a lot of diversity and information and ideas, and still with pride. A lot of the stuff I write, I've read something and I'm like, this is a cool idea, but poorly written. I could do it better. And then I do, or I think I do. I shouldn't be too cocky. So what I find in a lot of what I read is you have a very classic study of good versus evil, and that presentation of bad people and good people, and people are just people. And that was my approach in writing Friends We Haven't Met, although I didn't realize it until after I'd written it, and then I was working on pitching it, and I was like, oh yeah, I really write this from the point of view that all human beings are basically good. And when I say that, I mean that all human beings just basically want to be happy. They want to feel safe. They want to live their lives how they want to live their lives. And in doing so, that means that people can do some really stupid, harmful, terrible, and appalling things to each other. But the motivation of people is generally to try and feel happy, and no one does anything because they want to feel worse, effectively, to take a quote from Annie Pema Chodron. So Friends We Haven't Met is just examining that. How I write, generally, everything I write is examining that. I don't have a straw man evil character ever, or the bad guy. I always try to present the humanness of anybody that I write, any of the characters I create, so that there's a sense of identifying, and possibly also a sense of just questioning. You read a character that has some depth to them, like remember and think that when you meet a person, they have that same depth. Everybody is a little universe unto themselves with a whole background that most of us can't fathom, wouldn't ever get exposure to unless we get to know this person genuinely and they're in our lives for a long time. So rather than assuming the worst of people, it's much better just to assume the humanness of people. And that in itself is one thing that can really set my work apart. I think with a lot of sort of speculative fiction, so things that are looking at dystopian futures, a lot of the time when I read them, I don't really buy it, because they seem to think that when pushed to extremes, human beings will sort of reduce themselves down to the worst possible barbaric actions they possibly can. And yet we have so many real life examples that prove that's not true. You know, you watch any natural disaster hit an area in the world, and the first things you start seeing is people helping each other. It's people setting up electricity ports outside for people to charge their stuff, and it's people taking people in for the night, and helping people clear away sewage, and pulling people out of collapsed houses and rubble. And so human nature is not to fight. Human nature is to protect ourselves. And a lot of the time when everything goes wrong, as wrong as it possibly can do, you see that the default in protecting ourselves is just to help each other, because there's like that knowledge you can't do it alone, and we are pack animals. So I hope that comes through with most of my writing, or at least an exploration of it, and I do think that it sets things apart a little bit. So now, returning to the grade 2 journals of surrealism, we're on to journal number 3 now. I have a page of intense pie lust. I like cats. I like dog. Not dogs, just dog. But I mostly like pie. Oh, pie. Pie here and pie there. Oh, how I like pie. Pie in the fridge. Pie up high and pie down low. Oh, pie's my favorite. My favorite thing. Pie, pie, pie. I hate unions. More of that capitalism. I dabbled in lyrics for a little bit. It was interesting. Again, sort of a close relationship to poetry, departure from writing fiction, and definitely proving that I'm not musically inclined. If I actually, C-E-R-E. It's meant to be care. I just did an E instead of an A. We never lie or cry, and we love mom and dad. This is my favorite bit. Dunt, dunt, ba ba ba, dunt, dunt, dunt. baby. This is DNT. I'm gonna say I got this from my brother, actually. I'm gonna credit him with my music sounds. Not musical. I left that quickly, don't worry. I moved on to a brief interest in being a Mountie. I drew myself a horse here. I was really into that. When I grew up, I want to be a Mountie and I will live in a hut and I will ride a horse. I think this is the only time I ever wanted to be anything that wasn't a writer. Most of the time I knew I wanted to be a writer, and I wrote about that quite a lot, actually. Oh, we got another new viewer. Welcome, viewer. If you want to type, say hi. Hi. I'm just reading from my grade 2 journal here. Just kind of talking to myself. It's weird. This might not have been the best idea. Rimming words with no. Go. Ha-ha. Just, okay, so this is a surreal stream of consciousness over these 3 pages here. Yeah, rimming words with no. No, go. Ha-ha. I love centers. Don't know what I mean by centers. I love you. I love you and me. I hate onion. Okay, so this is interesting. I've moved away from the spelling of union. Onion is now U-N-I-Y-U-N. At least it actually is more phonetically correct than union. I hate spiders. This is what a spider looks like to me. Massive, with an admin. I love my brother because he's such a cutie. Such a cutie, Nick. I love Christmas, so I'm arranging a wedding. I don't know how that follows. I hate scorpions. S-C-O-R-P-Y-A-N-S. I love my DD more than anything else. That was my dad. That was what I called him. The surreal little bit. Like I said, early explorations of writing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I hadn't had any true instructions. Most of this was just random crap that came into my head because I was 6. And I think being 6 is a little bit like being high all the time from reading my journals. Early activism. So I definitely count myself as an activist. When I was a teenager, I was quite an angry activist. I learned how to be less of an angry activist so I can actually be an effective activist. And but yeah, so here's where I think some of that angry activism began. I would like the world to stop killing the whales. Now I want to be clear here. When I say whales, I apparently mean the country. But it's, you know, I'm sounding it out. So, right, Wales. I'm a big fan of the Welsh. I like Wales. And my uncle likes whales more than anything. That's why I want the world to stop killing the whales at Christmas and every day after Christmas. It's important when you're a kid. You know, Christmas for arranging weddings, Christmas for the day you stop killing the Welsh or whales. Don't know. I wish I've got a coworker that was watching this so that she could see how important it was for me that Wales was saved. Fun thing, just as a random aside, totally unrelated, if you're ever feeling sad, just Google Wales, as in like the country Wales, but think about it like Wales the animal. You'll find lots of political articles that become hilarious. Wolves. So I like wolves. I can draw wolves. Here's a picture of lots of different wolves, as well as some bats. Up here, little bats. It's a family of wolves. This is a picture of a whole pack of wolves wowling at the full moon with bats around it by Katie Hatch. So this is my art, really. I've always been a creative polymath. It's sort of the title that I give myself, creative polymath. As you can see, my artistic skills for 6, not too bad, I guess. I don't know, but starting. I understood to sign my artwork, though. That's good. Give it a time and date. Good practice to begin with. Okay, so here's an early autobiographical story. I mean, a lot of my stories are kind of random things about like camels and stuff. I think that one's coming up, actually. I remember. So yeah, hi, my name is Katie. In case you didn't realize, they're journals that say Katie Hatch journal. No longer goes Katie, by the way. It's Kate or Kaitlyn. Today, I'm going to tell you what bin schwa means. It means bread. That might sound funny, I know. But for Christmas, I got this tiger. So, strange transition. I promise in Friends We Haven't Met that transitions make a lot more sense. They're much clearer and smoother than when I was 6. I got this tiger. His name is Hobbs. I got the name Hobbs from a book called ... First Use of Ellipses. I actually went through a phase when I was about 19, 20 where I used ellipses excessively until I discovered the long dash. And then I was very excited about that and switched. So anyway, yes, I got the name Hobbs from a book called ... Calvin and Hobbes. Surprise. Well, here's a story all about Hobbs. I was tearing up the wrapping paper. I wrote wrapping paper, I did. That's what I wrote. Inside there was a box. I opened the box. I saw a plastic bag. Inside the bag, Hobbs was. Interesting play around with sentence structure. Now I ripped, R-I-P-T, the bag open. I pulled out Hoobs. I've apparently forgotten how to spell his name. I bawled my eyes out. Know why I cried so much? Was because I was always saying, I want, spelled with an H, W-H-A-N-T, that tiger. The end. Good autobiographical piece. I've got another little diagram here of a cat. Whisker dots. It's good. And claw lines. Very specific there. Strange. Anatomy of animals. Do we have any questions from viewers about Friends We Haven't Met, or my writing, or my weird journals, or I don't know, any questions about anything, really? Doesn't look like it. Who do we still have with us? I seem to have lost all my viewers. It claims that there's still someone watching though. Hello to whoever's watching. Oh, two. There we go. Hi. I still have 2 journals left. Oops. This is gone. Out of the wrong order. Just faffing around. No questions from anybody? No? Oh, another viewer. Hi, viewers. Oh, good. You're still here. Hi. Do you have any questions? Does anyone want to know anything about National Novel Writing Month, or Friends We Haven't Met, or other things I've written that aren't my crazy journals? Unless you want to know more about my journals, I can keep reading those to you. Some fun things in these. Oh, we've moved on to grade 3. Now we've moved on to grade 3. So at this point, I will be 7. Well, 6 turning 7. I seem to do a lot more color illustrations and things. Oh yes, and now my journals are being marked, so my spelling has to start improving because there's like some red marks going in on these things. There's actually surprisingly few negative red marks. I do notice that capitalization was a problem for me, which I do improve on. Where was this? Oh yeah, I got a present. I like writing about the presents that I got. That's an important thing for me to do. Today I had a present. It was right in, oh wow, this is amazing. Oh, no, it's unions, not unions. Unions. I stopped hating unions by the time I got to my grade 3 journal, actually. Apparently, I became less of a capitalist. I'm just going to read this story here about my present. So yes, today I had a present. It was right in front. Okay, this is some creative spelling. F-R-O-H-G-N-T. That's amazing. I mean, again, like phonetically, it makes sense, but it really complicated the crap out of that for myself. It's like reading Old English. Right in front of my bowl, I read the card. It read, "The present was a Ninja Turtle." I don't think the card actually read that. I think I lost track of what I was saying in the story. It was Neolardo. It was Neolardo. N-E-A-L-A-R-D-O. Neolardo. Neolardo is my favorite guy, GY. This is ahead of him. I draw him. There you go. Really into it. There's Splinter. I liked my Ninja Turtles. Splinter was my brother's. You see, it is hard for me to draw his body. My brother has a Splinter and one other guy, but I can't remember his name. Last night, Kendra came over, one of my best friends, the Gardettes. I have mentioned the Gardettes before. Their surname's actually Garbets, but I got my D's and B's mixed up all the time. So yeah, both of us played with the guys in a cottage, C-O-T-I-G. Very creative, lovely. Got a magazine. So I went to the library all the time when I was a kid, really loved it. I've gotten out a book from the library, or the library actually, because of the bees. When you wrote your book, do you use any kind of software? Yes! Oh, I got a question with my crazy rambling here, because I actually have a question. New name is Gardet. Yes! Okay, so interestingly, when I wrote Friends We Haven't Met, I did not have this software yet, but in editing Friends We Haven't Met, I do have said software. I'm using Scrivener, my wife, and it's amazing. I don't know if you use Scrivener, but it's great. If you don't use it, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. What can I say about it? It's a relatively new kind of software. That's my dad, by the way. It's a relatively new kind of software, I think. And it's like a private thing put out there by the guy who designed it. And the structure of it is great. They actually have templates that are very specific for writing. And what you create is, instead of having like a single document like you get in Word or Pages, you actually have a document with multi-things that you can put into it. So my wife, who bought it for me, used it while she was going to school. She used it to write essays and yeah, big projects and stuff, because you can keep notes in it within the template that they have for writing books. They have chapter breakdown, they have character breakdown, they have plot points. You can save images into it for ideas of like settings or characters and stuff like that. So yeah, Scrivener, I highly, highly recommend it. It's like the most brilliant thing. And I'm quite reticent to use new programs. So because I've been writing since before I could spell, I used to write a lot just handwritten in journals and stuff. As soon as I realized that eventually I was going to have to transcribe those things onto a computer, I stopped doing that because, yeah. So Scrivener, was it easy to use? So the thing was, like, in transitioning through writing, I had a writing program when I was a kid that was like made for kids, which wasn't very good. And then I moved to Word, and it's basic, it's very long, it's chunky. But the thing is with a lot of technology is, because I have a certain way of doing something and then some new technology is introduced, when it comes to me trying to use it, I'm like, it doesn't quite fit. Like, unless I can really customize it. And what I love about Scrivener is that you can really customize it. It's almost like the guy who designed and programmed it was like, create every single possible thing that a writer could use for whatever they're writing. So it's set up for novels, for short stories, for screenplays, and for academic stuff. And you can just ignore the stuff that you don't need or delete that. There's different plugins for it as well. And I found it easy. So I keep a blog and I have just a Scrivener document. And it's great because you can create folders within it. So I have on and then stuff that needs to be edited, but it's all in one place. It's really handy to get. I've got lots of notes that I've taken on it, which usually I don't use notes, but it's good because you can save links into it, references, stuff like that. I find it very, very helpful, and it encourages writing, which is really helpful. Not that I've ever needed a lot of help being encouraged to write, but I know that's a very common problem where part of the writer's block is like, you go in to pick up on a project that you've been working on, and it's this massive, long, single document, and you can't remember quite some plot point beforehand, but you had this new idea, and or maybe it's like you can't quite remember something about a character. When I was writing Friends We Haven't Met, for example, because it was in a month, it was pretty easy to remember most of the narrative, because it wasn't like it was go for a period of many months. But I did have at the bottom just sort of notes on each of the characters. And so it was always just sort of sat there on the bottom, and then get further and further down, and I had to keep referencing it. But within Scrivener, you can just actually have little character reference over on the side. So you can be writing and you just like click on your character card and see all this stuff, and it's not getting like it's going to get longer and longer, but your main text of what you're writing of your novel isn't getting longer and longer, and so you can have a more accurate word count, and it just makes life a lot easier. So yeah, I found it very easy to use, and in the context of I'm the sort of person who kind of bulks at new technology options when they come in, because they think one size fits all and it doesn't. But with Scrivener, definitely very easy to customize and use in your own way as you want to. I hope that, sorry, rambled for a while. I can't believe I decided to do this for 2 hours. Learning curve. Don't do 2 hours of live streaming. You're just talking to yourself. Any other questions? And comments. I'm going to do a shout out to Mara. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it massively. I'm just talking to myself. Right. Yeah, vanity. So I know that for writers, a lot of the time, there's like this idea that they're really reclusive and inward and stuff. I'm pretty gregarious. Hi! Yay, new person moving in. More people. So yeah, I've always been very gregarious. I have also never shied away from cameras and stuff. That's why I'm doing 2 hours of live stream. I'm gonna say it's my upbringing. My dad's a photographer. Hi! Yay! So I'm just gonna share another little piece from my grade 2 journal here, where I'm talking about how it's picture day. Today is picture day at my school, SHCOOL. I think I've seen that painted on pavement before. I am going to wear, as in the fruit, of purple pants. So that hasn't changed. I still like wearing brightly colored clothing. I am also wearing, this is interesting, I got wearing correct, but wear on its own I spelled were instead. So close. I'm also wearing a flower t-shirt with a sweater. I just had a spelling test. Didn't go very well. I am looking forward, FOURWERD. Again, I can just picture it. There I am, sitting on the stool, smiling. I just can't wait. I actually write, I just can't wait. I was very excited. It will be great. Here I am, picturing myself having my photo taken. I have a very round head. I think I also had a perm. That was a horrific thing my mom did to me. I like to sit on my knees when I was a kid. It just makes it look like I have weird ball joint things going on. I'm writing my spelling test. This is me writing my spelling test. And for some reason, I'm waving my arm in the air. Halloween. Halloween was a big deal for me. I did quite a few illustrations. See, my artwork's definitely coming along as a creative polymath. And then here we have my, yes, I want to be a wolf for Halloween. I will look scary and I will have red eyes. I want to be black and have sparkles on my costume. And apparently also a laser show behind me. It's excellent. Nice comment. And this is why you are successful. Even as a child, you envisioned what you want. It's true. Sure, I was imagining these things. A brownie uniform. Very interesting. Another chart for people. I do my little diagram of what I would wear. I don't actually know what I wrote in some bits there. I have no idea. Yeah, work on your capital letters. This seems to be a common comment. My goodness, there's a maniacal sun. That's terrifying. Do we have any other questions about Friends We Haven't Met, National Novel Writing Month? I've kind of come to the end of my journals, actually, in their silliness. And so welcome to new people who are watching now. We have people tuning in from all over the world. It's very exciting. Big fan of Denver. Big fan of Colorado, really. Big fan of mountains. Prairies one direction, mountains the other. So I haven't done National Novel Writing Month since 2012 when I wrote Friends We Haven't Met. It was actually the last manuscript that I finished. And at the moment I'm in the midst of editing it, which is going to carry on through June and July, with the book being published and sent out to people by the end of September. So all of my patrons, thank you again to my patrons. You will be receiving your book in September. And in the timing of that, I've decided I am going to do National Novel Writing Month again this year. I have a new idea I want to try out that I think would be quite good for that. I'm just gonna, at the beginning of this, I did like a run through thank you. And a lot of you who are now just tuning in for the second hour were not here while that was happening. So I'm just gonna do it again. Reminder, why are you here? Why am I doing this right now? Why am I talking for 2 hours ridiculously for some reason? Mostly to myself. I'm running a campaign right now. It's through a site called Publicizer, and I am pretty much 50% funded, and it's doing really well. It's steady, and I've had lots of great supporters, and without you, I wouldn't be able to make this book happen. So thank you so much to Gretchen, my lovely wife, Eva, Keiko, my parents, Julian and Shannon, Val, Athea, Jamie, Juanita, Guy, Tova, James, Annie, John, Claude, Natalie, Paul, Chris, Jeremy, Rachel, Patty, Ariella, Zabine, Peta, Celia, Sarah, Ross, who's tuned in, thanks, Nick, Annette, Georgie, Chris, Tina, Lee, Arancha and Stefan, Kit, Julie, to Anonymous, Star, Emily, Sierra, Nicole, and Carrie, Susan, Michelle, and Rita. Thank you so much for already being patrons. Yay, yay, you're awesome. I love you. Also, really appreciate everyone who's been sharing the link for it. That's great, brilliant. Keep pushing it out there as much as possible. We're pretty much halfway. The campaign, it's like, it's May, it's 31 days. It's the 15th. It's not technically halfway until the 17th. So we're doing really well, and I couldn't have got this far without you. And so I really, really appreciate it a lot. And thank you so much. So yeah, thank you. And thank you for tuning in right now. I don't know how many of you were here from the beginning. I don't think you were. So I could go back to one of my earlier journals that I already read from. The thing is that I've got all the ones I took notes in because I thought, oh, this will last me. 2 hours is a long time. Note to self, don't do 2 hours. Let's see, we've moved into grade 3. Oh, it's Halloween. It's very exciting. We have some lovely Halloween illustrations here. I seem to have stopped hating unions so much, actually, at this point. I was really into the union hatred earlier on. Actually, this is amazing. So when I was a kid, Halloween was a really important holiday for me, probably more important than Christmas, surprisingly. I did drawings of my costumes, my costume plans, all of the little bits. Oh, do I have an idea in mind for NaNoWriMo this year? I do. That is a good question. Thank you for asking. Yes, I do have an idea. And it's, I don't know how much to divulge. So NaNoWriMo is interesting because you have an entire month to write a whole book, which in some ways you think, oh my goodness, 50,000 words in a book in a month, who's going to do that? And in other ways, when I actually think about how long it takes for me to finish a book, much of it is making sure that it's well planned enough. So what stops me in writing, and when I have generally hit roadblocks and writer's block, has been not having a very clear idea of where I'm going and what's happening. So I do have an idea for NaNoWriMo, which I am working on now as an idea, because one of the rules of it is you're not supposed to write anything until November starts. But what I've learned about my writing is that the more prep I do, the easier it is for me to get it all down. And when I was younger, I did spend a lot of time in my head, in my imagination, sort of thinking about things. So I used to finish writing things a lot quicker when I was younger. And when I did Friends We Haven't Met, I was sort of aware of that going into it. So in the 2 weeks I had before it started, I just came up with my characters and my intention. So I set the intention. I want to work on tension and for like personal development of writing. And also I want to really explore the interconnectedness of people and empathy, how we relate to each other. So I had that going in. So my idea for NaNoWriMo this year is that I really want to explore, this is where it gets complicated. I want to explore the continuity of life. And effectively, I want to explore the topic of rebirth and karma, and in the context of fiction without it being woo. I want to be very scientific about it. I've actually had some conversations with my wife about this and whether or not it counts almost like possibly venturing into science fiction, although generally science fiction is an exploration of technology and the interactions of technology, like that people have with technology, either individually or as a society. However, I have read some sci-fi that is more about exploring a concept or an idea, a scientific idea, and I think that rebirth is very scientific because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So that's the theme and the rough idea, and I am working on characterization and plot and everything, but for now that's all secret. You'll have to wait, but I am hoping to, while I'm working on the NaNoWriMo project, to be publishing it as I go through a blog, very likely. So I'll be publishing as blog entries and people can follow along with it as it happens, which would be quite fun, if not slightly intimidating, possibly. But I think part of it's also very motivating. I'm disciplined enough. I set my mind to something and just get on with it. But there's something about knowing that I have an audience who wants to read more that can help. It's been very helpful actually with Friends We Haven't Met, putting it out there and actually getting feedback from people in the first chapter saying like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that you just ended it. I want to know the rest. So it's really nice and it helps to, I can write all I want and enjoy writing all I want, and that's great. But if I do want to make a living from it, then I do need people to want to read it. So it means a lot that people do want to read it, and I want to be able to share my writing as much as I possibly can. So yeah, many ideas for NaNoWriMo this year. Any other questions? Anything else? See a recommended scrivener. A few new viewers. Hi, viewers. I don't know how accurate this viewer count is because it like drops and adds numbers all the time. I don't think it's very good. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing. We have 1 more hour left of this live stream. Anyone else gonna tune in, or anyone else have questions? Shout out again to my patrons. Thank you so much for backing the campaign. You're awesome. No more questions. This is the bit where I go back to my journals and flip through them and see what I've got. Oh, wow. It's interesting. I did an illustration of paint when paint was new. How do you find this process compares to the process you used for your first publication? That is such a good question. You're awesome, Nicole. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Right, my first publication. So I published a book in 2012, 2013, 2013. I remember when I published my first book. 2013, I just sort of made up my mind that I needed to be published because I've been writing forever and wasn't published yet. And I'd been working on a manuscript for several years at that point for a nonfiction book, which was weird because nonfiction is not my forte, not something I've ever done. Like I said earlier, for those of you possibly just tuned in rather. Most of my writing has been young adult fiction. Friends We Haven't Met is contemporary adult fiction. So I wrote Wise at Any Age, which is a handbook for cultivating wisdom. And I should actually have a copy of it somewhere right here so I could show it to people. Oh, so remiss of me. It was so different from this. Crowdfunding to publish something is very different. In the case of Wise at Any Age, it was all very experimental. I was just pushing myself and the project to do it myself and get it all done. I funded the whole thing myself, which meant that I didn't really have any funding for it because of the time I just didn't. But I'm a designer, so I was able to lay it out. I illustrated the whole thing, did all of the conversion to vector of the illustrations, plotted out the whole layout myself, and then published it through lulu.com. And my mom was a great kind of agent for me and did a lot of marketing of it and getting it out there. The other thing with it is that it's a very short read. It's the kind of book you could probably sit down and read in like an hour if you wanted to. So it made it easy to get people to edit it for free. I got my dad to edit it. He's a bibliophile. He reads upwards of 70, 80 books a year. And a friend of mine who's an English professor and another friend of mine who's her master's in English, so in English literature. So I thought they were solid editors, legitimate editors, and they were able to edit it in their free time for free, and because it was short, it wasn't asking a lot. So the process with this one is very different. It's 50,000 plus words. I couldn't ask someone to sit down and edit it for free on a timeline, which is, it's going to be on a timeline because of the nature of fulfilling the perks so that my patrons can get their copy. So the difference in it was sort of the self-directed, very much just doing it myself as a project, almost like a hobby, versus this is like a legitimate real book where the crowdfunding, what you're paying for those of you, there's a blog entry where I break down the costs, but what you're paying for is first and foremost for my editor. I've got a great editor. They're fantastic. We have a very similar approach to how we write, and that they really like to explore human nature the same way I like to explore it. So, and I've already worked with them on the editing of that first chapter that I shared. So they're great. And they, like me, they write. And this is something, they've got their kind of like day job to make ends meet. But this is what they're passionate about, what they really enjoy. So for me, it's incredibly important that they get paid. So that's number one thing that it's paying for. And that's very different from the first book that I put out. Number two is the fact that it's actually being distributed. So with my first book, I just ran through, most of the work was about like learning how to lay out a book and illustrate it, set it up, get it imported, put it up on Lulu, and that was kind of done. I was like, oh, it exists. With this one, I'm pre-selling it. I've got a market. I have all my wonderful patrons are all fabulous, and you've bought copies, some of you multiple copies. So I've already sold copies of the book before, which with my other one I hadn't done. That's, again, very different actually to the other one. It was almost like, because it was so much of a project for myself, just to learn and see what I could do and to finally get my book published and be like, I just want to be published. And this one is more like, actually, I want to write. So how am I going to gain an audience, get my stuff out there, is very different. And then, yeah, the other thing is with the money, I'll be able to market it. So hopefully get it into some bookstores, at the very least, just to market it to a wider audience. Like I said, with my first book, my mom was an amazing agent. She pre-sold copies to loads of her friends and stuff, and that was great. But at the time, I was going through quite a lot in my life and working full time. I just didn't have the time or energy to market it. I probably did have the time, I didn't have the energy to market it. Basically, my structure of my life was like go to work all day and then come home and make art, meditate, read Dharma books, spent my weekends making art, cooking, reading Dharma books, writing. And yeah, so it didn't really occur to me that I should probably be marketing the book. So yeah, it's a very different approach this time, much more professional, and kind of seizing the bull by the horns, if you will, to push it out there. So hugely different process. And for the next one that I do, like I'm formulating it with my NaNoWriMo thing, where I'm gonna do NaNoWriMo and put the chapters out, and that's yet another different process. So does your Dharma art fit into the theme of the book? Did you choose these for the patrons for a reason? Yeah, not necessarily intentionally, but yes, in that everything I write from a Buddhist perspective. Everything I consume from a Buddhist perspective. Like I said about the interconnectivity of people, and Buddhism explores that. I mean, it's the nature of karma, as that everything is interconnected and influential of everything else. Nothing is of independent origin and existence. So this book explores that. My Dharma artwork explores that. I just explore that in my daily life. For the Dharma art prints that are available, the other aside is that I just happen to have them. I happen to have some prints handily, so it's also a convenience thing. And then it's just a nice extra bonus, you know. Crowdfunding is hard. You have to come up with perks, and you have to come up with perks that people will appreciate and enjoy and value. That will make a difference to, it could make all the difference to them backing at a particular price point. So it meant a lot for me to be able to offer something else of my creative work to people, to thank them further, because it's like, it's great they're getting a copy of the book, but it's also nice to be able to give them some of my artwork and be like, oh, I do other things too. And it's nice. What is currently your favorite piece of your own Dharma art? Wow, that's difficult. For anyone who's curious, if you go to funnelwolfcreations.com, I'll just type that in here. Oh, hello. And you, if you click on the gallery, then you can take a look at my Dharma art pieces. The ones that will be available as prints, as perks, are the square ones. Actually, if you bear with me, there's a piece of art right here that I did. I am quite pleased with this one. I don't know if it's my favorite. I don't know if I find it difficult to rank things anymore. I used to really be big on favorites, but these days I appreciate how the quality of appreciation changes and differs depending on one's mood and what's been going on. But this is a piece that I did for my mom as a birthday present. And I really, really like this piece. I really like the text with this piece, which is, we are always in transition, is what it says. I can't take credit for that text. Usually in all my Dharma pieces, I actually have come up with the text. But this one is from a story that Pema tells when she's talking to one of her teachers. And she's describing how she went to him and she said, oh, you know, everything's really tough in my life right now. I've got all this stuff going on. I'm really in transition and I have no idea. Thank you. And I have no idea what's going to happen next or where I'm going to go next. And her teacher laughs at her and just says, because she says, like, I'm in transition right now. And her teacher just laughs at her and says, oh, Anima, we're always all in transition. And the sooner you realize that, the happier you'll be. And so I've sort of taken that a little bit further for myself. And what I've added to it, and I say this to myself and I use it as a good reminder, and when a lot is going on in my life, like, you know, when I'm in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign doing something I've never done before, to put my writing out there, and it's all quite scary, and I have no stable income, and I'm stressing about it, is we are always in transition, and sometimes it's just more obvious than others. So that's kind of a saying. And yeah, so I really like this piece. It was fun to paint. It was very therapeutic to paint at the time, and well, I think it looks lovely, and fits the phrase with this like growth of the lotus flower and the clouds to water and water to clouds. And all of that. It's probably kind of obvious symbolism, but there you go. Again, I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's one I'm particularly fond of, and it's the most recent one that I've done. Just once again, I'm going to do a thing here. There's the link to the campaign for anyone who is interested in backing it who hasn't yet. Again, thank you everyone who's tuned in. So great to see people watching. Thank you. It is 2:17 here in Calgary, which means I still have about 45 minutes of this to go. I'm starting to regret saying I would do this for 2 hours. It's exhausting. Are there any other questions about the project, about the campaign, about friends we haven't met? No? It's gone all quiet in the comments. Hi to my viewers. The viewer numbers are doing a thing where they kind of flick on and off, so I don't know how many people are actually watching right now. I don't know how accurate that is. I've got my journals here. I've actually moved on to the grade 3 journals, which I had to say are kind of a great disappointment. Far less entertaining in grade 3, and I suspect part of this is because these journals are now being marked, so there's some essence of, wow, here's a tiger that I drew that's eating some mice. Oh, okay, so we've got another question, which is great in light of like showing you my journaling and the fact that I wrote so many. I do remember in school that everybody else seemed to have 2 or 3 journals by the end of the year, and I would have like 6 or 7. So the question is, tell us about growing up without television and how that influenced your choice to be a writer. Now, I would say that growing up without television didn't necessarily influence my choice to be a writer, because my conscious memory of wanting to be a writer starts when I was like 4, and I don't think at 4 I had any idea that I didn't have a television. I think it occurred to me. I don't know when it occurred to me that it was strange that I didn't have a television, and all of my friends did. Probably when I started school, really, like maybe a little bit after, like probably about grade 2, I would have become aware of the fact that everybody seemed to have a TV, but we didn't. I don't know that influence, yeah, so not having a television didn't influence my wanting to be a writer, but it certainly influenced my interest in books, because that's what I did. And like, well, my peers would come home and watch shows or would wake up and watch cartoons. I read books. I read loads of books. My equivalent of cartoons was probably reading the Collin and Hobbes collections and Bloom County collections. I read these things as demonstrated from my grade 2 journal earlier, when I read where I talk about naming a stuffed tiger I got, Hobbes. I was reading Calvin and Hobbes when I was a kid, and Bloom County, and getting exposure to deep philosophical and psychological things, concepts and ideas, and to American politics and American pop culture through the lens of satirical cartoon media. It was like strange exposure for a child. But in my head, you know, I was just reading about a penguin and a cat that hung out together, and about some kid who had a tiger. And I do remember actually reading Calvin and Hobbes, and at a certain point kind of shifting my awareness of realizing that Hobbes was a stuffed animal that Calvin made real. And prior to that, I really believed that Hobbes was real, and his parents, Calvin's parents, just had no clue. So it was interesting. That's what happens when you read Calvin and Hobbes from like the age of 5. I do know that reading so much growing up and not having television meant that I got exposure to so many different kinds of books, and just so many books. My parents, love my parents for taking me to the library every week. We would go, and I would come back with just bags of books. There's more books than I could actually carry. And I read a lot. I mentioned earlier in this talk, for people who weren't tuned in then, I read a lot where I would read it and I didn't like the idea, or I liked the idea. I didn't like the execution of the idea. I would read something, especially when I was a teenager, I'd read things and I would think, oh, this is so kind of saccharine, or it's so preachy, or it's so inaccurate. Like, whoever wrote it was like, clearly you don't remember what it's like to be a teenager. And I found that really frustrating. So I started to take those ideas and make them my own. I was like, well, I'm going to take this concept because I think it's a cool idea, and I think it was poorly written, and I'm going to rewrite it. So I think not having a television really influenced that in a lot of ways, because like, that was stuff I did for entertainment, right? Like, people would ask me all the time, if you don't have a TV, well, what do you do for fun? And I would say, like, you know, I play outside, and like climb trees and play tag and play with toys and crazy epic games with my friends. And but, you know, I grow up, this is Alberta where I grew up, so it was actually like winter 9 months of the year. So I was indoors a lot, and a lot of the stuff I would do is, you know, I would write. I would take chunks of paper. My dad fixed photocopiers when I was younger. He fixed printers now, but he we always had paper. We always had reams of paper, which a lot of my friends didn't. They'd come over and they get all excited. It's like, oh, white paper, amazing. And I would take it and I fold it in half and staple it and just make it into a book, and I would illustrate a cover, and then I would write a story. And that was something I did instead of watching TV. I didn't have a TV to watch. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm not necessarily like, okay, I'm against television. I won't lie. I am against it. It has its merits, but largely I don't put a lot of value in television or watching it. I don't have one. I don't choose to own one, and never will. But I will say that there is something about the exposure to stories from multiple kinds of media, which is really good and very helpful, because I think if you're going to write and you're going to put stuff out there, regardless of what you're writing or how you're writing it, if it's fiction or nonfiction or for adults or children or whatever, getting exposure to lots of other people's work and ideas really helps to refine your own and influence your own. So that's important. Do you still have interest in doing graphic novels? I don't know. That's a good question. That's a really good question. I do, but my approach when I was younger, because of the fact that I draw and like I make art and stuff, was always that I thought I had to illustrate it myself. I did have a friend, I felt quite bad about this. I had a friend who wrote something, and then he'd asked me to illustrate it. And I said that I would, and I started working on illustrations, and then I just kind of like realized I didn't like doing illustrations. I like doing one-offs. That's how my artwork is. So I just abandoned it and never really told him. I always felt a bit bad about that. Like, no, I just don't want to do it anymore. Good lesson for life. If you decide you don't want to do something, be honest and upfront about that and tell people, and don't waste their time. So So I do have an interest in doing graphic novels, but I think my interest in doing graphic novels has definitely shifted from doing a whole graphic novel as a very ambitious project unto itself to, I would like to work with an amazing illustrator who is really good at doing the graphic side of it, and I'll do the novel side of it. Very like Neil Gaiman, Sandman style. That would be how I would do graphic novels. And I do have an idea for a graphic novel, actually, based off of a really awesome, strange dystopian future dream that I had, which is kind of cool. And I think it would work really well. I actually thought of it as a story idea and took a whole bunch of notes on it. This is another thing, take notes on your dreams, writer's tip. Took a bunch of notes on it, and I was like, oh, I'll turn it into a book. And then once I started doing the notes, I was like, no, it was really visual. This needs to be a graphic novel. It'd be such a cool graphic novel. It'd work really well. I think it's the kind of thing I'd need to get into some different circles, meet some illustrators, hang out with some different people, find someone I want to work with on it. I'm going to say one of my flaws is that I don't like working with other people. And I'm going to blame school on this. You see those memes go around. They're like, what did doing group work in school teach you? It's like, do it yourself. I'm very driven and I'm very disciplined, and I like to see things through to the end, and I like them to get done. So I don't like relying on other people. It's part of the reason why I'm doing a crowdfunding campaign and publishing my book my own way, and probably starting a publishing house, because the traditional publishing route relies on getting an agent, and then relies on the agent getting you a publishing deal. And I just wrote a blog entry, but I like the autonomy of being able to work for myself fully and choose things like what the cover looks like and stuff like that. So doing a graphic novel would involve working very closely with someone, and so I would need to have a very good relationship with them. In the case of friends we haven't met, actually, I'm finally venturing into working professionally with an editor properly. And it's great that I've found someone who I really click with, and I very much trust what they will feed back on and how they will be able to help my writing to be the best that it can be. But this is going to be like a new one for me. I'm going to have someone where, you know, we need to work to deadlines together, and so that it'll be good. It'll be good for me. It'll help me to be okay with group work, and then possibly in the future I can do that graphic novel that's in my head and in my notes and stuff, my little ideas. I definitely don't want to be restricted. Like I said, this is a contemporary adult novel, but I'm getting published. Most of my stuff has been young adult. I've got a few collections of short stories. Not going to go back into poetry ever. Bouts of poetry when I was younger. Surreal at best. Wooden at the worst, probably. Graphic novels would be, yeah, that would be fun. Any other questions? These questions are great. I love the questions, and they help when I've still got about half an hour to go. My throat's starting to go. I was at sea level for like 2 months, so it's very high and dry in Calgary now. Thank you again to everyone who's tuned in and tuning in. This link will be available afterwards, so if you are just tuning in and missed the first half, you can watch that later. It's quite long though, it's 2 hours. I don't recommend you watch the whole 2 hours. I might have to do some editing on this and cut out all of the weird in-betweeny bits for people. Hopefully I actually read out all the questions properly as well, because this will make sense. Any other questions? No? I should do another shout out. Thank you. I want to remind all my patrons, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you backing the campaign and making friends we haven't met possible. Without you, it won't happen. Last I checked, it was $2 shy of being 50% funded. It's the 15th of May. It's 31 days this month, so the 17th of May is technically halfway, but we're practically halfway and practically 50% funded. So thank you for getting it this far. That's fantastic. If it just continues on this same thread, it will be 100% funded by the end. And even if it isn't at this point, I can make it work. It'll be hard, but I can make it work. So thank you so much. It's very, very helpful. Right. Grade 2 journals. Oh, so apparently a deviation from wanting to be a writer, briefly, in my grade 3 journal. So I moved on to a grade 3 journal. I made up my mind to be an art teacher. I am good at drawing. Maybe this picture is good. Maybe this picture is good. It's interesting. I go from very confident that I can draw and I'm good at it, then maybe this one's good. I don't know. If it is, I'll make it for a Christmas present. What do you think? There we go. It's my drawing I'm going to make for a Christmas present. And my brief decision that I'm going to be an art teacher. I don't actually remember making that decision. It's interesting because I've always told people that for as long as I can remember, I wanted to write, and that's it. It's the only thing I've really genuinely been driven to do, and therefore have done, which is why I have finished manuscripts, so many of them. Yeah, apparently, according to my journals, I have actually changed my career choices a few times. We had Mountie, we have had art teacher. Guess what? Tomorrow is the last day of school, then Christmas holidays. Zip-a-dee-doo-dah. Wow. That's actually pretty impressive. I got zippity-doo-dah spelled completely correctly, except that my Z is backwards. I'm impressed. I can't spell onions, but I can spell zippity-doo-dah. Moving on. Still no questions? No. I should have taken more notes in these beforehand, so it was easier going through all the ones that I did take notes on to read from. Oh, that's right, that's the giant tiger. We already found that. See if I can find another good story to share with you. Now, most of this now, it's interesting, it's really started to turn into genuine journaling where I'm just writing about stuff that I've done and what other people have done. What is this? Okay, this is very interesting. Today, Bobby Ray was somebody in my class, hit me for a very stupid reason. You see, I was minding my business, B-I-S-N-U-S, hanging up my coat when she hit me. Strange. I don't seem to actually give the reason. I'm just saying that she did. I'm going to do cat pictures. Wow. I just, again, completely changed my track of mind. I do promise there's a lot more continuity in all of my writing nowadays. It's far more, well, actually, it's not necessarily linear. But at least it doesn't just transition really awkwardly from one subject to another. Cat facts. Ooh, so I did science fair. There's lots of things. I was a really strange and creative kid. I suspect I traced this. I don't think I actually drew that from freehand. My drama art is definitely improved. Lots of facts about cats. I'm going through a cat-obsessed phase. I had better than 20/20 vision. So I'm trying to find a good story here to read to you. I think I need to go back to my grade 2 journals. I don't know. It's just like I become dull and wooden when I'm 7, while I'm free and ridiculous when I'm 6. Let's see. I like trees because B-E-E-K-U-S. Because I can climb them. I have fun with my tree at my birthday. Because. So we had because up here, and now I've decided to go with a capital D. Because, same terrible E-E-K-U-S spelling. I can decorate it. Trees are important. When someone cut a tree down, it's cold waste. I don't know why the waste is cold when you cut down a tree, but there you go. Trees are special. Wow. You know what's special? That spelling of special is special. Because they are part of the environment. Profound. Very profound. I like my activism in this. Oh, yes, right. Okay, now I was 7 when I was in grade 2. Does that make sense? I have a brother. His name is Nick, N-I-K-C. That is not how my brother spells his name. He's in grade 5. I'm in grade 2. 2 is backwards. My brother is 11 and I am 7. Get it? 7, 11. I remember this. I remember being so amused. You can tell how amused I am because I wrote he, ho, 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 ho. Because 7 and 11, you know? See, I even drew the sign just in case you missed. 7, 11 at the same time. Craziness. Oh my goodness. The things that amuse you when you are a child. I'm serious. I know I said it before. I think the mind of a 7-year-old is like being high. It really is. It's so surreal. Do you know what you have to do to be a brownie? It's very important. Well, I have a little bit to tell you. Just a little bit. To be a brownie, frest things, frest. Frest things, frest. Yeah. You start as a tweenie. You have to go to church. I don't think you actually have to go to church. I think it was held in a church hall. But in my head, it was about going to church. Not going to church, but going to the hall. You play games like colored eggs. I don't know what that game is. Also, that's it. I just leave you hanging. I don't actually tell anyone how to be a brownie. Then we'll never know. It's terrible. Promise there's a conclusion to friends we haven't met. I did do that. I concluded it. What's that called? Wow, I'm really tired now. I did this for a long time. Let's see. Can you guess my name? It's Katie. Again, with the guessing of the name. It's very important to me. I am going to tell you a joke. Oh. Jokes for kids who are in grade 2. I don't know. They're not usually that good. I am going to admit something here. I find it really challenging to write humor, which is problematic because sometimes I create a character and I'm like, they're going to be really funny. And then I can't write humor. I couldn't write humor then either. Let's see. A joke. Okay. There's a chicken. Wow, my spelling of chicken is amazing. Check this out. That's chicken. For real. Yeah. So there's a chicken. And this chicken went into the bookstore and said, book, book, book. Oh, I see what I did there. That's actually quite clever. So the lady gave the chicken 3 books, and 3 days pass, and the chicken comes back and says, I've done it again. I just stopped in the middle of a joke. See? Couldn't write humor then either. I just failed. Totally failed at it. I had a nithmere. Can we guess this one? Let's play the guessing game. I had a nithmere, people. What did I actually mean? I have a nightmare. This is nithmere. Interesting. What happened is I went to a place and a fire started. I lost my shoe. 3 people were Brent. 3 Brents in one place where there was a fire. What are the odds? Then I went to my mom and dad's room. Roses are red. Violets are blue. When you got in trouble, you sure were too. Ha ha. P.S. Calvin. This is what happens when you let grade 2 kids read Calvin and Hobbes. They start just taking on the personality of the cartoon characters. No more questions? Oh, we've got a new viewer, maybe? I don't know. The viewing counting isn't working very well. Hello to anyone who's just tuned in. If you have any questions about Friends We Haven't Met or the campaign, there's 20 minutes left of this. My throat's really dry, and I can't believe I thought 2 hours of this would be a good idea. Thank you so far for all of the lovely questions. Thank you again to all of the patrons who have backed the campaign. Does anybody have any questions at all for me about the book, about writing? Whoops, I just lost my chat window. I guess I could talk through a little bit about the process of crowdfunding and when you're going to get your book for those of you who are patrons already who've backed it. So this campaign has still got until the end of the month to go. It'll be finished on the 31st of May. So you have until the 31st of May to get your copy. I have posted the link in the little chat room to where the campaign page is. So go back to the book. That would be great. When it finishes, the next stage is going to be the editing stage. And this needs a lot of editing because I wrote it in a month. That's what happens. You write a book in a month. And the thing about NaNoWriMo, which is kind of great, is because you've got this drive, like, got to get it finished by the end of the month. So when you come up against something where you're like, or my experience anyway, is I just pushed through it, which meant I just let myself write really badly sometimes just to get something written down so I could get to the next point in the story until something good came out, or what I perceived as good. So the manuscript itself does need quite a lot of work. The first chapter that you all got to read that was published in my blog was edited by my editor, lovely editor. Very excited to be working with them on this. So through June and July, we're going to be doing all of the editing, lots of heavy lifting editing. And then August is going to be my month to get the publishing proof. And so that'll be some of like the minor edits, checking spelling and stuff like that. It's quite a process, and that's also the point which I'm going to be sending the book out to people to see if I can get some quotes for the cover and get a little bit more traction on it in advance. And then all of my lovely patrons are going to get their copies throughout September, along with whatever perks that they have coming to them. So if they have art prints, then they're going to be getting their art prints. So the whole project really is quite intense for anyone who's interested in crowdfunding. To get a book published, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work leading up to it. It's a lot of work during it. And during it is also emotionally very intense. There's lots of roller coaster. There's like, oh my goodness, I've got like 4 new backers in the last hour and it's doing really well. And then it just kind of grinds to a halt for like 2 days. I'm actually in a really weird place. Like yesterday, the backing got to it's like 48%, it's like $2 shy of 50% funded. And I was like, I'm pushing it out, and it's gone all quiet. So I'm just waiting. But it's the weekend, it's Sunday. I know that people aren't necessarily thinking about a campaign going online and stuff. They're off doing things, which is great and good. So I'll wait, and it seems to pick up on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and I'm getting used to that. So yeah, it's a roller coaster. It's a lot of work, and it involves a lot of prep beforehand, and then a lot of kind of maintenance and pushing it on and momentum carrying during when I'm doing things like this. And then afterwards is the actual production, right? So it costs quite a lot to get a book published. The average is $5,000. That's why I'm aiming for the $5,000 to be able to cover all the costs comfortably, and especially because I don't actually have any money to pay for this out of pocket. Yeah, and then from that point on, it's really, it's the production, it's the editing, the layout, and then which I will be doing myself because of my design background, so I can do that. A lot of writers can't. It's important to find someone you can work with and that you enjoy working with on that. I'm very fortunate that I get to do all that myself. But yeah, I have found an editor to work with. Very important to have someone that's not you edit your work. I'm sure there are people who can edit their work and actually do it properly, but I would suspect you're few and far between. So most people find an editor. It's important. And then after that, it's the perk fulfillment. So it's actually sending it out there to people. And then the last bit for me is going to be getting a marketing company to push the book out and get it reviewed in blogs, possibly get radio interviews, maybe get it into some bookstores. I'm going to be doing a little bit of that myself as well. And that's the point when I might actually see a little bit of a return. So at this point, and the way that the crowdfunding thing works is this is just paying for this. Like it's for the campaign and for the perk fulfillment and all of that. And then some money that I can use for a marketing campaign. So I'm not getting paid at all, other than the rich reward of people really wanting to read my stuff, which is exciting and quite awesome, actually. And it's fun to finally be able to call myself a writer and have an idea of what that means, actually, which is that, my job is to write. And even if I'm not getting paid to write, my job is to write. And I am working, and working doesn't necessarily equate to having a regular paycheck. But in time, as I put more stuff out there, this being a first step, which you're all really helping with, and I have just so much gratitude for everybody who's given anything to the campaign at all. Every single little bit helps and is all essential, because I did the whole self-publishing thing with Wise at Any Age, and it's hard, and I didn't have the funds that I needed. So it's brilliant, because you're giving me what is needed in order to make this a reality. So thank you so much. And if you haven't backed it, go back it. You'll be one of the first people to get the book, because I'm not going to make it available to the public until November. So yeah, you'll get it in September. It's a good Christmas idea as well. This is a great Christmas gift. If you back the book, there's different patron points that you can back at. If you were to back it for, say, $250, you'd get several copies, and so you could use those as Christmas gifts. If you back it for $500, you'll get 10 copies, I think. Yes, 10 copies. So, that could be all your Christmas shopping done in one go. And also, one of those copies that you'll get will be a signed limited first edition hardback copy. So cool. And you might be one of the only people in the world that gets one, because I'm not going to run a lot of those. They're expensive to print. Yeah, lots of really good perks to backing it, besides the fact that you are helping me eke out a living, and you are encouraging somebody to do what drives them, and that's really awesome. And good. It's good for your karma. It's really good for your karma. Generosity is a great thing. And then the other thing is, I am genuinely considering setting up a publishing house and supporting other writers to do more of this. So in supporting me, you're supporting a lot of other people. There's just a big network that goes out. I've got friends who have their creative projects, and my editor, as I mentioned before, my editor is also a writer. They do the editing, but they don't do any of this full time. They have their day job to help them out. But this is what their passion is, what drives them. So you're not just helping me out, you're helping them out too. And you're creating something. You're involved in creating something, which is very cool. That's why I wanted to call everybody who supports it a patron and not just a backer, because you're so much more than just a backer. You are driving this project and making it possible. I can share the link as much as I want, email as many people as I want, but if no one wants to read it and no one values it, it's not going to go anywhere. So it means a lot to me that you guys have already valued it so much and have backed it so much. So thank you. So we've got 10 minutes left. The viewers have gone down. I don't know if there's any last minute questions that people have. My throat is really killing me right now. But if you have any questions, just type them in the little thing. Otherwise, very soon I'm going to say my goodbyes and go guzzle a lot of water, and then not talk for a little while. Campaign tip. This campaign tip of doing something sort of midway to keep the momentum up came from Talia Simone. I think that's how you say her last name. She did a really awesome Kickstarter campaign to fund non-toxic underwear for women, and she's very cool. She has a blog, the Thundress blog. I'll just type the name in there so you can Google her. So yeah, if you Google Thundress, I really recommend her blog and her non-toxic underwear, because that's important. These are important things. So thanks to her, she was great. Big shout out to Talia, because I did a lot of research. It's easy to do lots of research into crowdfunding and what it will look like, and you'll find loads and loads of information. And unfortunately, a lot of it is kind of obvious, or I think it's obvious. I do have a marketing background, but still, it's stuff like post it to Facebook and Twitter, send out lots of emails. Like, okay, obviously. So yeah, I've done all the personalized emails to people I know, and regular updates during the campaign to people who've already backed it, and regular updates to people who haven't backed it, and posting on Twitter and Facebook and all of that. But she made some really awesome suggestions, and one of them was that she said, like, by midway, you're going to be kind of flaking out and feeling crazy. You'll probably have been posting just nonstop. It'll feel a bit mundane even. So if you have something that can kind of jump it. So that's what this was. This is just a little bit something extra for people to enjoy, and from an opportunity for me to thank people again. Like, I know I've been sending out email thank yous and stuff and regularly posting my gratitude all over the interwebs, but being able to say an actual shout out thank you to everybody who's already backed the campaign is great. In which case, in fact, before I go here, because we've got 9 minutes left, I am going to do another quick thank you. I've already done this twice before, but hey, it's been 2 hours and I've had different viewers coming on. So huge thank you to Gretchen, my wife, and Julian and Janet, my parents, and Nick, my brother, and also to Eva, Keiko, Val, Athea, Jamie, Juanita, Guy, Tova, James, Annie, John, Claude, Natalie, Paul, Chris, Jeremy, Rachel, Patty, Ariella, Zabine, Peta, Celia, Sarah, Ross, Annette, Georgie, Chris, Tina, Lee, Arancha, Stefan, Kit, Julie, Christina, Caroline, Star, Emily, Sierra, Nicole, Carrie, Susan, Michelle, and Rita. So thank you for already backing the campaign, for being patrons. I really, really just like gobsmacked at the support that I've been getting. And for everyone who's shared the link to the campaign, I've posted the link in the little chat, so you can click on that if you haven't backed it yet. You can go and become a patron. So yeah, I've got like 6 minutes left. If there are any last questions that people have, if there are questions that you have, if this is like post this video going up, ooh, weird paradox. You are watching what I am now recording. You can send questions to my Facebook page and I will respond. I respond pretty quickly actually to anything on my Facebook page. I'll just post a link to that for you as well, so you can click on that. So that's any last questions. Yeah, so any questions that might come up that you think of that you weren't able to ask, or for those of you who are watching this later, please send them to me. I'm happy to answer them. And thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. My spattering of an audience. I don't know how many viewers in total I had. I think somewhere around 15 by the end from various times. So thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to my strange and surreal journals of my childhood. If there are any writers who have been watching, I hope that I've been able to give you some insight into crowdfunding and into available tools that work. So yeah, thank you so much. Mad appreciation. And it's a little bit early, but there don't seem to be any more questions and my throat is done. So